to a regular board meeting of the Board of Trustees of the St. Helena Unified School District. Today is Thursday, November 12th, 2020. I'm Maria Haug, Board President. I would like to introduce my fellow trustees. Board Vice President, Ms. Lisa Pelosi, Trustee Jeannie Kerr, Trustee Jeff Conwell. Also joining us this evening is our student representative to the board, Joe Brody. Happy birthday, Joe. I would also like to introduce our district staff, Superintendent Dr. Mary Lou Wilson, Chief Business Official, Ms. Andy Stubbs, Director of Curriculum and Instruction, Ms. Mary Allen, Executive Assistant to the Superintendent and Governing Board, Ms. Erica Madrigal, and IT Systems Analyst, Mr. Derek Machado. We're delighted that you're viewing us on Channel 27 or our YouTube channel. A copy of this board meeting will also be available on our website at www.stHelenaunified.org. In connection with closed session items A and B, the board received information and provides staff with direction. Item 5B, the flag salute. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So at this time, we have on the board, on the screens, we have our directions for public comments at board meetings. Ms. Madrigal, is there anyone present who wishes to publicly comment on items not on tonight's agenda?
There were no comments submitted on items not on the agenda.
And there's no one, I see there's no one in the audience who wishes to make a public comment. So then we will be moving on to item 7A, a presentation by our student representative of the board, the birthday boy, Mr. Joe Brody.
There we go. This one works. Alrighty. Good evening, everyone. Thank you, President Haug, for that introduction. My name is Joe Brody. I'm the student representative to the Board of Trustees, and I would like to thank whoever our interior designer was tonight, because this little display is beautiful. Now, before I get into our big reopening, I would first, one of my most favorite responsibilities is highlighting student achievement here in the district, which is really just a fancy way of saying that I get to brag about how great our students are. So tonight, I would really like to focus on the 2019 and 2020 Advanced Ag Systems and Honors Ag Chemistry classes here at the high school, taught by Mrs. Judy Ashwanden. Last year, students in this class worked, outlined, created, went through their agri-science projects. So students outlined and went through a whole experiment, and wrote their APA papers based on their findings. Projects were then submitted to the California State FFA competition, where 18 out of 20 projects were state finalists, which means they were in the top 3. 6 projects were then named state champions. 5 projects then went on to the national competition, which meant they were the top 10 in the nation. And we had one student, Liesl Wolf-Heinemann, who was the national champion in agri-science in the plant systems division, which is incredibly exciting. So a big shout out to all of our students, especially in the ag program. And Liesl, if you're watching tonight, good for you, congratulations. And thank you to all of our ag teachers for all of the amazing work that they do to really help and support our students. Now, of course, what we're all here for, it has been a very, very exciting 2 weeks as students have been returning to campus. Tonight's report will focus mostly on the 6th through 12th grade levels, so of course the RLS and the high school. Now, in a normal school year, the only real difficulty that we have is getting freshmen to their classes. Of course, we have been through much more than that this year, but our students and our staff, I am very pleased to report, have really risen to the challenge. Being on campus and speaking with RLS students, it is really just amazing to see how passionate our students are about being back on campus. And because they're so passionate and willing, they're really following the guidelines, especially when it gets difficult during passing periods, staying socially distant, wearing their masks and really stepping up to the plate. I was talking to some RLS students today who were just happy to be back, happy to see their peers, happy to be working and collaborating in an academic environment. And it's just so exciting, not only as a student, but as a representative, to see not only the work that our students are putting in and their commitment to maintaining a safe learning environment, but the work of our staff, because I know it has been a very, very difficult few months, and everyone here, every single stakeholder in our community has really put in the work, but I feel like our staff, and especially our teachers, are really reaching above and beyond. You know, this, when you look at simultaneous teaching through a pandemic, teaching online, you know, this more often than not isn't what they signed up for. These teachers signed up to be working with students, working in the classroom, really grappling with that academic discourse. And regardless of all the challenges that have been thrown at them this year, they are stepping really above and beyond. So I'd like to thank all of our teachers and our students for working through these challenges together. One of the things that I hear from Mr. Cinto especially a lot is that, you know, this is a partnership, not only with our students and staff, but with our community. And every single stakeholder in this district is really stepping up, and I'm really proud to be able to report that. One thing I would like to say is, of course, as with any new and challenging thing, there can be bumps in the road. But again, our students and our staff are stepping up. We know that simultaneous teaching is a challenge. And, you know, we're only in the first 2 weeks, so I don't think we can expect everyone to be 100% all the time. Because, of course, it leads to burnout, and that is definitely not what we want. We want to be staying on our A game, especially looking at a public health crisis like this one. Of course, that being said, our students and our staff are stepping up, and I know that as we continue to hopefully stay in person, it will get better and better. Of course, I would like to round out my report with a reminder that this is only going to work if all of us, students especially, do their part and are following the guidelines. That means not only at school are they wearing their masks, are they socially distancing, but reminiscing on President Haug's comment at our special meeting, this is a community endeavor. This is not just students wearing their masks at school. This is students wearing their masks in the community and wherever they are engaging with others. And I think that that just is a really important reminder to kind of round out my report that, you know, we are definitely not out of the woods. We are still in the thick of this. We are seeing cases rising. So if we want to continue to create an environment where all of our students can thrive, we all have to do our part. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Joe. Is there anyone present who wishes to publicly comment on this agenda item? Trustees, were there any written comments?
No, there were no written comments.
And do the trustees have any comments or questions? Would you like to wish Joe a happy birthday?
Yes, a happy birthday. And yes, and thank you for your words of wisdom. That's exactly right. Yep. Thank you very much. Thank you.
I'm going to sing you happy birthday. No, I'm just kidding. No, thank you, Joe, as always. It's great to have this, as we always say, your student perspective on what's really happening, boots to the ground. So thank you very much for sharing that with us. And happy birthday.
So thank you again, Joe. On to item 8A. We have our board member reports, and I would like to call on Mr. Jeff Conwell, who will be reporting on the RLS.
Thank you very much. And now I know why I didn't set the agenda. I should have come because I would never go after Joe. That's something you always learn after being president. You never go after the student representative because it always makes everybody else look poorly. But I'm going to steal from my son, and I'm going to give you the BIF, which is the big idea up front from the RLS. The board made the right decision. We started school. My experience of going to the RLS with Dr. Wilson today was fantastic. It's interesting. It's kind of more spacious. There's 25% less students kind of around, maybe. Some are online. I wasn't aware that, of course, and it makes sense that if one child, for example, has any illness or a family member has any illness, then that entire family's staying home. So what we're seeing is an in and out kind of who our online people are, not just the regular online people, but an in and out as to that. So it's it's fascinating to watch. Today we had an opportunity to go to see some of the electives. We went to Makerspace, we did art, computer science, and lastly we did PE. And just each teacher it has their own solution, and it's not the one that's a textbook solution. They're each finding how it's working best, and probably if we went in day one, it would be completely different than what we witnessed today. So I was really impressed with the adaptiveness of the teachers and how to, first of all, they're teaching to the students in the classroom, which was my number one objective. I wanted to make sure that that was what was kind of in my mind. That's the most important thing. And then trying to include as best they can the online students and have them follow along. So I think the board should be absolutely thrilled. And when you guys do get a chance to go on campus to visit your schools, you'll be just elated to see. Of course, you're reminded how the students are respectful, nice, they're keeping their distance, they're following the protocols. Everybody's kind of in this good mood of being engaged in learning and yet knowing that it could so easily go away. And so I was just really taken by my visit today, and a special thanks to Corinne Cox, for taking the time to allow us to come visit the school, kind of walk us through, answer the questions, and it's just amazing all the different things that professionally they've had to do to create protocols to how people are going to walk, where they're going to stand, what temperature checks are going to happen. And so it's a whole myriad of things, and they're all working through it and doing the best they can. And you kind of, it's not what school was last year this time, but it's so great it's in session. So wonderful visit. I was really, really happy to be able to be there today. And that's my report at RLS.
That's such good news to hear, Jeff. Thank you. Next, we move on to item 8B. We have the superintendent subcommittee reports. And Jeff, if you could continue with the calendar committee report, since Mr. Olguin is not here tonight.
I am not going to be able to do that. I was not.
President Haug, may I give that report?
Thank you.
Yes, of course.
Thank you. Want to let all of you know that the calendar committee did meet again on November 10th to continue the conversation around 3 years of a calendar. They took a look at survey data that the teachers union collected, both from the teachers union and also from the student perspective at the high school. And they discussed a number of considerations. Of course, there were lots of varying ideas. And they're looking at drafting 2 different 3-year calendars that they will review again in December and potentially bring to the governing board as early as January or February of 2021.
Thank you. And I believe, Dr. Wilson, I am also calling on you for the Curriculum, Technology, and Innovation Committee report.
Yes, and it's really with great pleasure that I share that our superintendent subcommittee's participation has increased quite a bit. I think we had 19 people within this Zoom meeting on November 3rd. There were a few updates that we provided to the committee. First was instruction, and Mr. Heller talked with the committee about the simultaneous methods of teaching, the schedules, and how we modified those slightly at the middle school and the high school to meet the needs of our students and our staff. Andy talked about technology and the different enhancements that we've offered, and Mary talked about Fuel and Apex as those online separate programs from the simultaneous. Each of the principals had a great time sharing a little bit about the day in a life, and they shared some successes and some lessons learned. And then Mary Ellen closed the meeting with some Department of Education updates. And I think the most important update is that the State Board of Education did approve a modified SBAC testing for this school year. It'll still be in place. It'll be modified so that it is not as long as it typically is. And I know Ms. Allen will have more information for us in the coming months.
Thank you. And then the Equity, Climate, and Culture Committee, either Joe or Lisa?
Joe, do you want to do a little?
Alrighty. So I could only make the first half of the meeting, but I know that in the half that I was there, the subcommittee reviewed the two initiatives that I brought forward this past year, which was the Pride Month resolution and the Green Initiative, just kind of rounding out that process, update the subcommittee on the progress that was made and what progress will be continued to make.
Right. And then I think one of the exciting aspects of that meeting was the discussion that we had and all the great work that Mr. Cinto and the high school staff is doing around ethnic studies and creation of curriculum in response to that letter that the school had received, signed by all those community members. And because it was shocking to hear, and I think that they were saying that they wanted to implement ethnic studies on the state level, but it was going to be something like 2025 or... Oh, yeah, it was something crazy. So leave it to Mr. Cinto to get the ball rolling a little bit sooner on things like that to implement something on a local level. And I think the committee wholeheartedly supported all the work that was being done, and that if we needed to use some of our funds to put as seed money for any ideas to help promote the ethnic study path at the high school, that the committee was willing to do that. So more to come on that, but it was really awesome. So.
Thank you. Next we have item 8C and item 8D. We do not have reports from our two bargaining units. And we move to item 8E, which is the superintendent's report. I'd like to call on Dr. Mary Lou Wilson.
Thank you, President Haug. We'd like to remind the board and the community that the District of Choice window continues to be open through the 30th of November. Those applications can be found online or via a phone call to Erica Madrigal, and she'll send it to you electronically. And those applications are due by the 30th. You'll recall that we'll process those applications and then move forward with the lottery in January. I wanted to remind the board and the community that our facilities, while they have largely been closed through the pandemic, we have begun allowing different members of the community that serve students to lease and or use some of our facilities. For example, the Waves have been using the pool. There's a softball organization that's using the softball field right now. We are trying to serve our students in the best capacity that we can. And you'll note that there is an item on the consent agenda tonight around that. I also wanted to remind our board and the community around the election process for our governing board members. Every 2 years, there is an election where 1, 2, or 3 of our board members is potentially up for re-election. Our county registrar, Mr. Tudor, announces all of that in the newspaper early on in the calendar year. And in fact, this year, Mr. Conwell noted to the board early in the year that he would not be running for re-election. As a result of the election process, I did hold an orientation where I invited community members to participate and learn more about what it is to be a board member in our community. That election process requires that a candidate go to the registrar of voters, and it's called pulling papers, that you fulfill the paperwork that's required. And this year we had 2 candidates. Both candidates, we had 2 open seats, and so with 2 candidates, they ran unopposed, which means there is no election this year. So Jeannie Kerr, one of our sitting board members, congratulations and thank you for joining us for another 4 years. And then in the audience, Forrest Minter is in the audience tonight, and he'll be joining us in December. Welcome, Forrest. And do you have somebody with you that you'd like to introduce?
Oh, this is my wife, Dominique.
Nice to meet you, Dominique. Thank you for joining us this evening. And then finally, I would also like to look at Joe and wish you the very happiest of 18th birthdays.
And then we have items 8F through I are all written reports from our schools. And I I encourage all of our community members to read through them. You can see the highlighted students of the month in each one, and all the work that is being done at each school site, as well as distance learners.
I just, a special shout out too for all those, the videos that were made by our principals, because I did watch those, and how great. I mean, that was a lot of information, and they ran like 45 minutes. So thank you for doing that for the community, because I think that really answered a lot of questions. So
All the day in the life videos.
yeah,
yes.
those were just, it
very,
was so
very
great.
helpful. Very
So
helpful.
thank you.
Very helpful. Item 12A. I'm so sorry. What happened there? Okay. I'm sorry. On to 9, the consent agenda. The consent agenda contains routine items judged as appropriate to be acted upon in one motion. If a board member requests that an item be removed from the consent agenda, the item will be considered under discussion action items. Is there anyone present who wishes to publicly comment on the consent agenda? Ms. Madrigal, were there any written comments submitted by members of the public on the consent agenda?
There were no comments submitted.
Trustees, do you have any questions about this agenda item?
No.
Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda item 9 as presented?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. On to item 10A. We have, oh my goodness. Oh, here it is. I have a little something to say on our outgoing board member, Trustee Jeff Conwell. I just panicked a little bit because I thought I had lost my kind words of thanks that I spent the afternoon writing. So we are recognizing Mr. Conwell for his service to the district. At this time, I would like to express thanks to Trustee Conwell, who has served on the board since 2010. He has served as president for 4 of those years. For those of you who do not know the job of a trustee, I can say that it is time-consuming and often thankless. Yet again and again, Jeff answered his civic duty to serve our community and our students. He was part of the team that brought the district from financial uncertainty, from a place of financial uncertainty 10 years ago to the secure financial position we have today. His advocacy of fiscal responsibility has left an indelible mark on the district that will not disappear. Jeff also made sure we always put student first and was always on hand at student fundraising dinners and extracurricular activities. He has devoted countless hours to this district, studying issues, attending meetings, and leading our district, knowing full well that he would get little recognition, thanks, or compensation. So this time I would like to thank you. And while I guess that your future endeavors will never be as exciting or as challenging as what you have experienced as a trustee, I wish you all the best. You are well prepared to face any challenges you will ever have to face in the future. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you, Maria. It's very nice.
And is there anyone else who wishes to publicly comment on this agenda item? Trustees?
Yeah, Jeannie, am I okay to go? Yes, I am. I'm so happy we're in person for this night. I would like to just say that because I was really going to be, disappointed if we had to do this over Zoom. So, obviously I can say ditto to just about all that, but on a personal level, obviously I've known you for a very long time, and a decade worth of service to this position is nothing to take lightly because that's a big commitment. So thank you so much for being there. And I will say that, for me, coming on board and doing this job, one of the things I have learned from you was always to put students first and to keep that train of thought at the forefront of decisions, of discussions. I will always respect for you speaking your truth, what mattered to you. And honestly, even if it was something that I disagreed with, there was always respect in that. And there was always the opportunity for me to look through something through a different lens. And that's a mentorship that I don't take for granted. So thank you for that. I also respect your wisdom and your experience that you brought for 10 years of this position, whether it was in closed sessions items or open session items. So know that we will miss you and we thank you. And we expect big things from your garden out in front. And now that you have Thursday nights free forever. But truly, thank you for everything, Jeff. It's been great.
Thank you very much, Lisa. Very nice.
Okay, so I prepared something this evening. I don't do that very often, so it's special. No, just teasing. Thank you very much for your dedication to our district the last 10 years and always putting student achievement, success, and how to best serve our students in the forefront of every discussion. It has been a privilege working with you, and I feel so fortunate to have gotten to know you and your family through the years. It is crazy to think that we started our term together when our children were in third, fifth, sixth, and seventh grade, now college graduates and soon-to-be graduates. The time has gone by so quickly. Each year has been entirely different than the year before, but you have always been focused on what is best for students. Thank you for your leadership as a board president for 2 terms and always dedicating the time for board meetings, special board meetings, workshops, subcommittee meetings, facility meetings, county meetings, visiting school sites, attending back-to-school nights, attending games, and always cheering for our students. Thank you, Jeff, for your unwavering dedication to our students and the St. Helena Unified School District. I feel so appreciative, and I'm very much going to miss you. And so my last board question I'm ever going to ask you again is, what are you planning to do with all your free time? Thank you for everything, Jeff. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you. It's very nice.
And Jeff, I do know that Julio did submit public comment. Would you like to read it, Dr. Wilson?
I would.
Okay.
Should I defer to Joe first?
Oh, okay, yes,
Joe,
of
do you have
course.
comments?
No worries. Whenever board meetings, I always think of Trustee Pelosi's boots on the ground comment. And however oblivious those boots on the ground may be to the decisions that this board makes, know that through your leadership, this district has really taken great strides in the right direction for the support of our students. And so on behalf of all the students, and then of course on a personal level, I would like to thank you again for your years and years of service to our community. So thank you for that. We really do appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Joe. It's very nice of you.
Yes, Trustee Conwell, this is from Julio Ogin. I want to take this moment to congratulate you on your commitment over the years to our district, community, and most importantly, our students. I have no doubt that your passion and dedication to our district has had a tremendous positive impact. Your strong leadership through challenges and a sustained vision of excellence for our district are all qualities that I admire about you. I've enjoyed working with you as you have served as a great example for an incoming board member. Our district and community have been fortunate to have you serve on our board, and I know that you will be missed. I wish you the best of luck. That's from Julio.
Oh, very nice.
President Haug, if I may as well make a few comments. And before I do, I'm actually going to defer to the principals and the team in our district who are wondering whether or not they can make comments. And so I am going to look to the audience, and if any of our administrators would like to make a comment, please come forward now. Derek, can you check and see if the microphone is on at the podium?
Jeff, Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
Jeff, I wanted to come up and say something because when I was thinking about coming to St. Helena, it was in the spring 9 years ago, and I watched the board meeting, and you were talking to the principal at the primary school, saying that you really wanted to have data, that you felt like that little kids could have data, and I needed to know what they were doing. And I was so impressed by that because I love data, and I really appreciated and admired your ability to see that it is important for all kids to have accountability, and that was really important to me. And that was one of my deciding factors, is the fact that you cared so much about students. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Well, Jeff, I've known you as a parent and now as a board member, and been around you a long time, and been around your kids and been around your wife for a very long time. And I absolutely respect what you've done for the district. This is, I think, close to my 16th year, and I've seen this district change for the good. And a lot of that is the direction of the board and the mindset of the board. And I know how important that is, and you've added a lot for that to happen. So I really appreciate everything that you've done. There's a lot of energy that goes into this, and your dedication and energy has been well worth it, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mary.
Mr. Conwell, I'd like to echo my colleagues' sentiments. And my only regret, and it's not a real regret, is that you've never been assigned to the high school, because I've always had one of your children at the high school. So from Gus, Gail, and George, I mean, you've clearly done a remarkable job with your children. You've been a pleasure to have at the high school, because I've seen you many times elsewhere, whether it's on the playing field or on the tennis court. But we really do appreciate everything you've done for our district and your stewardship, and you raise great kids.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
As similar to what Tamara said, when I first came to this district, I'd been at a district where it was fairly dysfunctional school board. And I still remember sitting here at my first board meeting and being stunned at the professionalism and commitment and preparedness and intelligence and articulateness of this group of people. And I know that you are a huge part of that, and that you've been such a great leader. So thank you very much for all that you've done to support the kids in this district, and all of you.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Karen.
Thank you. I'll second that direct comment from Ms. Cox as well. I just always come away from these board meetings feeling that it's the most functional board that I've seen in action, and that's being able to take some very difficult decisions and work on them through the course of time to outcomes that feel really solid within our district. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Tanya.
Mr. Conwell, I had the pleasure of being hired by a team of board members that you were a member of. And 6.5 years ago, you all put your faith in me and my work. And I appreciate all of the support, encouragement, and guidance that I've received from all of you as board members, and as you are leaving us as a board member, specifically you. Garrison Keillor has a famous quote, "Nothing you do for children is ever wasted." And that truly could be your mantra, because everything you do is for children. So thank you for your leadership, your guidance, your wisdom, and your tenure on the board. I'm wondering if perhaps you'd like to introduce somebody in the audience at this time.
I would. Of course, my wife, Lori, you're at the end, so I'll have you stand at the end. You know, it's funny. It's so nice, everybody making a comment. I really appreciate that. Under my mask, of course, it's nothing but smiles, so maybe my crinkled eyes would show that, and I appreciate everybody's comments. Like Jeannie said, I sat down and I said, well, it's almost 11 years, so that's about 119 regular board meetings. Of course, that doesn't include any of our special board meetings. Committees, workshops, conferences, and of course, community engagement time. And when you look at it, and I know that Jeannie, you're going to surpass me with another 4 years on top of mine, it's just amazing the amount of time that is given in this role of being a trustee. And I think that's what's made this board so strong and made this administration so strong, is our willingness to give, to make things better. And personally, for me, it was like all new board members, I think. You don't know anything about education, so it's a new vocabulary. there's acronyms that people use mid-sentence, and you're supposed to get it and kind of understand it. And so it was an incredible learning for me to be able to kind of have that opportunity to learn a completely different world that was different than what I grew up in, what I do for a living. And so it was kind of very fascinating to me to have a whole new direction as far as an interest. And I really believe that the board and staff focus on what's best for all the students. And I think that's kind of been the trick, and that's really what's made our board do so well. I often tell people when I'm in a situation that I think we have the best administrative team that's led by our superintendent. My highlight of the almost 11 years was working in tandem with Dr. Wilson I was president for the 2 years, and it was interesting being a president a second time, because all of the issues that you have the first time of being a president, the second time you just get in there. Oh, and I'm getting solicited by Scam Only. So it's fascinating to get basically a redo on our president role, and with somebody as capable as our superintendent, it was really exciting to be able to be in that position. Staying on the board would have never been possible if it hadn't been for our children. Gus, Gail, and George, there were times you're eating dinner, you get up and leave. Soccer game, get up and leave in the middle of a game to come here, to come somewhere else, to do something. And they all understood. Special thanks to my wife, Lori, who, before I left every regular board meeting, would always tell me that, remind me to make the best choice for all students. Sometimes those choices have not been popular with staff, with some parents, even with our friends, or my friends. But it simplified the decision when you always do what's best for the students, no matter what the personal cost is. So thank you, everyone, for giving me the opportunity. It's really a pleasure. Appreciate it. Thank you.
And Trustee Conwell, sitting on your desk is a token of our appreciation. That gavel's for you to take with you. We don't want you to forget us. It is engraved with your name and some words of appreciation. We expect that to be, prominently displayed at your home
I
as
think
you
so. I think
celebrate
we'll have it
being
at
a
the
board
doorway.
member.
It'll be our new entry knock, so when people come over, they can gavel. Thank you very much. That's very nice of you.
Thank you, Jeff. I wish we could all come up and give you a handshake, but with COVID, the situation that it is, just know that we're all giving you a big virtual hug, and thank you very, very much. Thank you. On to item 10B. It's a little bit anticlimactic, I have to say. Review and consideration of approval for Board Policy 0470. That's the COVID-19 mitigation plan. And I'd like to call on Miss Sandy Stubbs, sorry.
Thank you, and I would just like to say that any board member that understands cash flow and what a TRAN is, the way you have it, you're okay in my book. So back to this matter at hand, our insurance group, the North Bay Schools Insurance Authority, has approved some special liability coverage for COVID-19 claims that are excluded under our regular memorandum of liability coverage. And one of the requirements for being able to access this special liability coverage is to have a new board policy in place that outlines our COVID-19 response plan. And so CSBA has drafted the attached board policy 0470, and legal counsel for NBSIA has provided some edits that are appropriate for school districts within the JPA. And so I've read through the policy in its entirety and determined that we're compliant with all of its provisions. The policy was sent to the Board Policy Subcommittee, and I've not received any questions or comments regarding its content. And so with that, I would recommend that the Board approve Board Policy 0470, outlining our COVID-19 response plan.
Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to publicly comment on this agenda item? Ms. Madrigal, were there any written public comments submitted?
There were no comments submitted.
Trustees, do we have any questions about this agenda item?
No, I did not have any.
I don't either, no.
Is there a motion to approve Board Policy 0470, the COVID mitigation plan, as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carried. We have next item 10C. It is a written report on the District of Choice program for 2020-2021. I would like to remind the trustees that this is a written report, and along with a lot of board policy and administrative regulations, as well as our resolution. Is there anyone present who wishes to publicly comment on this agenda item? Ms. Madrigal, were there any written comments submitted by members of the public?
There were no comments submitted.
Trustees, do we have any questions about this agenda item?
I actually have a quick question. So, so the numbers that we have so I'm just trying to think how I'm going to ask this. Knowing that there might have been some families who have not in our students not in our district this year, and because of COVID and had doing homeschool or whatever, and maybe coming back next year, they wouldn't be in the numbers of today. Is that correct? As far as kind of the ADA.
I think, are you talking about District of Choice students, or are you talking about students of residents who might be?
Residents.
Okay. So within our district, all of the students who continue in the fuel education program, in the APEX credit recovery online program, and our distance learning program are still enrolled in our district. There are a handful that may have chosen something else. So a California Department of Education homeschool program or an online private program. Those students would not be reflected in these numbers at this time.
So, but it sounds like though it's a handful though. So it's not, for next year, it's not going to be where we're going to be overloaded with classes because we're able to allow some District of Choice students in.
Are you asking if we are going to be able to allow DOC in for the 21-22 school year?
Maybe that would be the question.
I do not have that crystal ball, and we have not affirmed caps for 21-22 yet. We will be doing that later on in the school year. I will continue to conduct an analysis of enrollment and our next steps and make recommendations for you at a later time.
Okay.
Remember that once those caps are confirmed by the governing board, then Ms. Madrigal and I are required to take a snapshot of enrollment, and if we have any available seats at a particular grade level that are under that cap, then those seats would be offered to District of Choice based on the lottery, number 1, 2,
Right.
and so forth.
Okay, perfect. Great.
So there are no guarantees.
Right. Right. And I do appreciate the very comprehensiveness of this report as well. It was very good. Thank you.
Ms. Madrigal is the master.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Any further questions or comments from trustees? No. Okay. Moving on to item 10D, also a written report on the 2020-2021 residency audit. I would like to remind the trustees that this is also a written report. Is there anyone present in our who wishes to publicly comment on this agenda item? Ms. Madrigal, were there any written public comments?
There were no comments submitted.
Trustees, do we have any questions about this agenda item?
I don't know.
No.
Okay. So moving on to item 11A. That would be the presentation on the learning continuity and attendance plan focus. We have a focus this month on our English language learners. I'd like to call on Miss Mary Allen.
Miss Allen, you're going to get the microphone from Erica.
Derek was working with Ben. Good evening, board members again, and Superintendent Wilson and the staff members and members of the community, our new board person, our new board member. Thank you. Welcome. Tonight it is on the learning continuity and attendance plan updates. As you know, we've been doing portions of the plan at the board meetings, and this tonight will be on the English language learners. And for our district, we have approximately 243 English learners of a population of 1,183 students. That's about 21% of our student population are English language learners. Looking at this is our dashboard. We did not do the LCAP last year because we went into COVID-19 pandemic in March when testing happens. So this data is from 18-19, which is where we get monitored from the state at this particular moment. So as you can see, it's pretty exciting, and I have to thank our EL coordinators at each one of our school sites, Kathy O'Connor at the primary school, Dana Tucker at the elementary school, Dana Simon at RLS, and Tyler Patterson at the high school. This is from 18-19, and you can see the progress. I'm super excited. So when you look at the blue and you look at the purple, you're going to see that we had a total of 53.9% of our students make progress. And that means that they moved up a level in their language acquisition for English. So that's kudos to all the teachers. All teachers teach designated EL, but we specifically have the coordinators that keep that all going from year to year. So I just wanted to have a big thank you. Now I'm going to turn it over to the principals from each site to talk about what they're specifically doing, aligning with ELs with the continuity plan. Tamara Sangranetti.
Okay, I think Mary already talked about the LPAC. However, initial LPAC has to be done for any new student that had within 30 days of enrollment. And obviously we have a lot of new students at the primary school. So we were able to do the initial LPAC, and that assessment includes listening, speaking, and reading and writing. And so Mary Allen actually got to spend some time with people that are 4 and 5 doing this assessment. So I think she has a new affinity for younger people, because sometimes when they, it's obviously, it's parents, you guys realize, it's just a reminder that this triggers when parents are registering their kids and they check the home language survey. If the children speak another language at home, if how much Spanish or whatever language they speak. So anyway, so sometimes this initial assessment, even though it's 1-to-1 and it takes quite a bit of time to do that, sometimes the factor is factored in that children that are 4 and 5 just don't speak and are afraid. And so that is also part of what we're trying to do, is trying to figure out just how much those kids really do know. So we've identified those kids. Our kinder and TK teachers, we've gotten the results. We've scored some of them ourselves. And so those teachers have those results. And so at the primary school, we have, as we said, designated ELD. And so what teachers do is that they level the students based on their language ability, and they receive specific instruction that's at that child's level. During the pandemic, we did that. During distance learning, we did that as well. But we were also able to utilize Imagine Learning, which is an online program that supports listening, speaking, reading, and writing, and mostly listening and speaking. And so the program is very interactive, it's adaptive, and kids are able to practice speaking and hear themselves speak, and it also helps them, correct how they're speaking. let me see, I want to go one more slide. That's what I was going to talk about. So in primary school, we do lots of integrated teaching. So you can see teachers, or when I go in and observe teachers, there's integrated ELD happening all day long. It happens in math, it happens in social studies, it happens in art. There's lots of scaffolding that goes on, and as you know, there's lots of pictures, there's lots of front-loading vocabulary. So that is really kind of the way that we do our teaching in the younger grades is thematic teaching, but there's lots of scaffolding going on for our English language learners. As I mentioned that we do have the leveled classroom groups, and so oftentimes what we do is if we have a group of second graders and we have 2 beginners in one class, 2 beginners in another class, and 1 in a third classroom. So we would group those kids together, and those kids would get specific instruction that's at their level. So teachers share kids for designated ELD in grades K1 and 2. This year, we also have an additional support with a teacher 2 days a week who's specifically working with our second grade students on writing support. Writing's really difficult. When kids are taking that LPAC, that seems to be the stumbling block. Kids are able to do pretty well on the reading and the listening and speaking, but the writing is the stumbling blocks. And most of our kids start to becoming redesignated when they're in second grade, and writing is the part that really stumbles them. So we're really focusing this year on giving those kids extra writing support with their English. So that's my report. Tanya?
Thank you. So again, to segue or to continue speaking a bit about kicking off with that LPAC test, so the English Language Proficiency Assessment. We began it in March and had gotten through about half of those different modalities with Dana Tucker taking the lead on that and assessing our students. Fortunately, there were some rather than we were not able to finish it in the springtime because being able to assess carefully and whatnot was not something that was able to be done from a distance. As we came back, the state allowed us to make some decisions about who we finished the tests with. So we were able to test students who had not taken it yet, so who had come in new to the district, and we needed to have a baseline for them. If they had marked a language other than English on their intake forms, we completed those tests. And then we went through, and what was nice is being able to see which students seemed the closest to being able to be redesignated and seemed like they would likely be if they were to do well on this assessment. So I'm looking forward to seeing what those results are and to see if we will indeed, how many students we'll have that will be able to be redesignated as fluent language proficient. Our grade level teams also have to assess constantly within their curriculum flow of the integrated times and then also designated ELD. What's really clear in our framework and in our language development goals is that students aren't put in a level and kept there all year. The goal is to really ebb and flow with what we called scaffolds and support that are real time and that are intentionally trying to be taken away, see if a student can succeed, put them back if they need a little more help. They may need scaffolding in math, but not in history or language. And so it's really a dance of really getting to know the students individually. From a distance, we found that with Zoom, once we started to have the Zoom breakout rooms, that became really strategic time for the teachers to be able to put them into their breakout rooms and saw kids speaking more, because to actually use and speak and hear each other as models is very important. And in the beginning of our distance learning, we were having a little bit more of the deer in the headlights. So it was nice to see intentional questions happening in the breakout rooms and also collaborative writing assignments using Jamboards and using things where students use different color ink to prove and show what parts they put into it. And as a final, just the language samples that get recorded on Seesaw also intentionally show a longitudinal growth of the language that the students are doing. It helps them show their skills to an audience of their peers and to their family as well. So we feel like that's really continuing to be a good tool to help our students grow in their language. for all of them, as we're all English language learners, but especially those that have a second language that they're have as their primary language when they first started with us in the district. And then just 3 points about just our program and support plan. We have balanced classes, so we look at our English language learners and we purposely balance them and distribute them evenly within all of our classes at each grade level. What that does is it helps all teachers be able to maintain a program that's supporting the language and being able to talk to each other as colleagues, and not have some teachers just teach just to English only and others that teach the English language learners. We definitely, experimented with different ways of handling that, but to have everybody be language support teachers has really helped the teams glom together. At times they may have different language levels that they're supporting, but currently we have them quite evenly supported. And then we do this year have 2 newcomers. So those are students who have come quite within a short time frame in the, I believe it's less than a year or so, to the district. We've had one come from, actually both have come from Mexico, one in 3rd and one in 4th grade, that get a couple additional support periods during the day, one that's more supporting their math, and then also another that's specific to the designated needs of their language development of English itself. And then finally, although we have less support and share our intervention teacher this year with the primary school, we are able to continue with the Systems 44 for 3rd and 4th grade, taught by Coach Martine, and in this case, reading Coach Martine. And then Dana Tucker is able to continue to support the 5th grade students that are the English language learners, the way that the team has designed their support period. So really happy. It's obviously different and we've had to pivot a bit, but I think that we're doing well given the circumstances of our distance learning, and we'll continue to see the growth during this year. Thank you.
So I'd like to start with how we are supporting students. First of all, we do offer an English language development class at every single grade level. We've tried it a variety of ways. We've tried doing it by levels, LPAC levels, and ultimately we went back to grade levels. It just seemed as though the teacher felt that the kids learned better without the distraction of, say, an 8th grader with a bunch of impressionable 6th graders, and that the teacher, our ELD teacher, Dana Simon, just differentiates within the group, and it's worked out quite nicely. We do support that by having a newcomer class for those students who barely speak English, if at all, because they really can't access the curriculum, and even in the ELD class. We also have 6th grade language learners that get additional support because the transition to middle school can be pretty challenging for kids anyway. So the 6th graders, in addition to getting an ELD class, the language learners also have ELA. Their regular English class is with Miss Simon also, so that she focuses on the same curriculum that the regular 6th grade English teacher focuses on, but she does it with the lens of language learners, and then is able to support them additionally during her ELD period. So they're really getting twice as much. In looking at the schedule, we just started that last year because we felt like 6th grade was where you really want kids to feel like they can handle middle school and they're supported and ready to go. So during this is happening both during distance learning and now that we have paraeducators meeting daily with the EL students. So during either at-home study time or access, they're scheduled in to work with those kids either individually or in small groups. And we're continuing to do that both with the distance learners and also with the in-person learners now that we're back, because they really do need that additional support. Remote learning was especially challenging on language learners, for language learners and special ed kids. Dana Simon, our EL teacher, checks grades every week and offers individual support in all subject areas. And she also creates lessons in science and creative writing daily for the newcomer, because although all of our teachers are trained in differentiation, it's a really need a lot of extra help, and Dana provides that to the teachers. So in order to support students, you need to be able to support teachers, because it is challenging to try and balance all of this at the same time and meet the needs of kids that range from high school level to, again, not knowing the alphabet in their own language, let alone in English. And that is literally the range that we have. So our master schedule is designed so that the ELD teacher can support all the teachers. Her schedule is she has flexible periods when her supervision and prep periods are, so she can kind of move them around so that she can meet individually with any teacher who needs her help in any subject area or any grade level throughout the day. And shout out to her for being so flexible and willing to make that work. She attends grade level meetings regularly so that she can make sure that as a group, the whole grade understands how best to support the needs of individual kids. And she provides individualized strategies for each English language learner. So it is the hallmark of the program is really the differentiation and the individualization that's happening. And then she also meets with core subject area teachers to help them figure out how to best accommodate and prepare lessons for EL kids that fit within their ability so that they can access the curriculum at a level that makes sense to them. So it's quite a challenge as the curriculum challenges get higher and higher and the content gets more and more difficult and there's more and more foundation that has been missed. It just requires a huge amount of effort to make sure that those kids are not just sitting there in a room having no idea what's going on. But it's so important to all of us to make sure that every child who comes to our school is able to benefit from what we're doing and that we find a way to reach them no matter how hard that is. And all of us, and Dana really just has such a passion for making sure that that happens. And I feel as though the last 3 years, I would say, our support for language learners has just become exponentially stronger. It makes me feel really happy because I know how, especially now, because I know that those kids are really struggling with distance learning. Has been very difficult. So I'm glad we were able to offer the amount of support that we were.
Double-fisted. All right, so I begged Mr. Heller to let me include another slide, keeping me away from the minimum of 2. So for a little context is, wait, there's a laser here, isn't there? If you look at the 2 graphs on the side, this is breaking down our EL population at the high school. And I include the 2 graphs on the right, socioeconomic status and parent education level, only because we know those are 2 high correlation to students' academic achievement. But what's good to know is St. Helena Unified is a positive outlier district in overcoming those 2 hurdles in terms of EL student achievement. Another positive thing to look at when you look at the grade level graph, you see a bulk of our EL students are in the 9th grade, and it starts to dwindle down in the ensuing grades to a low of 4% of them are seniors. So what that is clearly we're having a number of students who get reclassified over time. I think it was 2 years ago when we talked about EL last, and we were looking at our rate of reclassification. Only 2 students who had started out with that cohort were not reclassified. One of them was a student with severe disabilities, and the other one missed it by 2 points, and he would have been reclassified, and that would have been everybody within that cohort. So that's really positive news to look at that graph and see the numbers dwindle down. And one of the challenges, particularly at the high school, is time in U.S. schools. So when you have, and I put the CDE goals for an EL program over there to the left, because if you're under 5 years in U.S. schools, your ability to reasonably ensure that English learners within a reasonable period of time achieve the same level of rigor, well, that's really hard when the rigor of the coursework is so high. And we have different things in place to lessen the rigor of the work that students encounter. But again, thinking of coming here from another country with very limited English, and the background of those students ranges from left school in 3rd grade to just left school now. So a very diverse student population. And then you have the population that have been in U.S. schools for over 10 years. So that's also a challenge there, because obviously they are not rapidly and effectively learning the English language. A lot of that can be due in large part because 40% of our EL population is also receiving special education services. Or, and a lot of people think at some point in time they were misclassified because of their language. So there's some challenges inherent in the demographic given the diversity of the student population. But what I'm super excited to report is this year, when we developed our master schedule, and Corinne talked about this a little, you communicate priorities. So historically, when creating a master schedule, you put all the classes that you only have one of, singleton AP classes, this, that, and the other. This year, we started out our master schedule with putting ELD right next to AVID, and in a period where there is no directed studies or independent study. Because we wanted to communicate a priority that our EL students were our priority. So in each of, this year I have 2 ELD classes, which in and of itself has improved the program because those 2 instructors can collaborate. We've been able to break the student groups apart, which again, you talk about rapidly and effectively meeting students' needs and differentiation. We've clustered them by ability levels. So a student can move up from one to the next level during the same period of the day. They could do small group, peer tutoring, all sorts of things. So we have 2 sections of ELD that are supported by bilingual paraprofessionals from the independent study, directed studies class, 40% of whom they see in that class as well. So they get to spend a lot of time with these students. They're doing mentoring, they're keeping tabs on them, working in small group. I don't think it got in this presentation, but they're constantly working with ELD students and special education students, many of whom are the same, and it's working really, really well. Unfortunately, this year we weren't able to, because of the scheduling shift, we weren't able to make the AVID alignment work because we moved a whole host of first periods to 8th period. But that is something that we'll do in the future, having done AVID mentorship of ELD students in the past. Worked really, really well. And then lastly, in working with Mr. Patterson and Mr. Grace, I had them put together a document which should be hyperlinked in your presentation there of the 5 areas that we control as a school: curriculum, instruction, assessment, learning environment, and professional development. So they went to great lengths to detail what they're doing at the high school to make it work for the students. But again, I'd like to go back. We're being very successful. We're getting kids reclassified. We're supporting them as best we can, and they are thriving. So that is great news.
Thank you all. Any questions?
So first of all, do we have any public comment from the audience tonight? And Ms. Madrigal, were there any public comments submitted? Trustees, comments and questions?
I had one primarily for the elementary school. I needed a refresher on what Systems 44 is. I'm sorry, I remember Read 180, but Systems 44, just a brief snapshot. And then you also mentioned that there was less support this year because you were sharing with the primary. Mm-hmm. Is that just for this year, given the circumstances of where we are with the pandemic? And okay, that's what that was. Just I just wanted to make sure that that wasn't a permanent shift. It was just a shift for this year. But if you want to just Systems 44,
yeah, I'll
that
speak
would
to
be great.
Systems 44. It's the same. It's also through Scholastic, and it's good. It's the beginning. It's a program that comes before Read 180 typically. There's 44 phonemes in the English language, so it has a program where you're getting into each of those phonetic parts of the language and then branching into the understanding of how the language works as well. It has audio component and a recording their language expression as well. And our primary and elementary had normally have a full-time intervention teacher that works TOSA for language and math support. Ms. Tucker and Ms. O'Connor are classroom teachers this year, and Coach Martine is working with a 0.6 and a 0.4 to support our language learners during this pandemic time. Exactly. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Any other comments or questions?
President Haug, if I could share quickly that I did have a conversation recently with Dr. Barbara Nimco, our county superintendent, and she relayed to me a conversation that occurred at a recent professional learning network. That is the group where Mary Ellen participates, and they work on the continuity plan and the local control accountability plan. And while Mary won't say this, I will. Members of the other districts, after reviewing the data and the growth of our English learners, I believe requested an additional meeting in December because they want to learn more and go deeper and hear more about what's happening in St. Helena with regards to our English learners. So thank you to our principals and to Mary and Chris for their efforts in really focusing on students who typically are at risk and helping to close that achievement gap.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well done.
Thank you, Ms. Ellen. And then I would just like to make a short comment more for those who might be viewing on our YouTube channel or on channel 27. We do have monthly presentation foci for the current for the continuity plan. And last month we focused on our special education services during this time period, and next month we will be focusing on socio-emotional supports. So thank you, and just parents know that we are going to be looking at these issues and how we're dealing with these challenges that we have in our current blended distance and in-person environments. And at this point, because this is our first time back in person for a few months, we've been doing the Zoom meeting or distance meetings. We are going to have a short break of 5 minutes. I'll see.
Well, then that's okay for you. Then it worked out okay.
But this is cute.
Testing.
I think we should make this a permanent.
I know. Did you take a
Testing,
did you take a
testing.
photo of yourself?
I will take a picture.
Here, let me take. I just finished. I have to do the spouse tonight as well. Finish that up. Okay, that's good. Let me come in a little bit closer. Maybe you can get a new phone for your birthday. Talk to your mom.
Testing, testing, testing.
It's been brought up once or twice.
Okay, I'm gonna take one so I can send it to Mia. She's like, I can't believe Joe has to.
So thank you, everyone. Welcome back.
She is not. She's not, no.
We are on to item 11B, which is a written report on the district emergency preparedness. I would like to remind the trustees that this is a written report. Is there anyone present who wishes to publicly comment on this agenda item, or were there any public questions, public comments submitted to the board?
There were no public comments submitted.
And trustees, if you have any questions, Ms. Mary Allen will be able to answer them. Do you have any questions on this agenda item?
I do not. Mm-mm. Thank you.
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank you for the report.
Welcome.
Next, on to item 11C, consideration of approval for the district program improvement review plan. I'd like to call on Ms. Mary Allen.
Yes, as we had just stated, related to English language learners, on the dashboard you saw the progress. They also look at special ed. And for this particular report deals with data that's from 2018, 2019 school year. So looking at the dashboard, we ended up being in targeted review from the state for special ed. There are 12 elements. We have 4 elements that we're in targeted review for. That means that we have to create a special education plan of how we're going to address those particular issues, those elements. Of the elements, we have one that deals with dropouts. And this is looking at our cohorts that start in 9th grade that don't graduate with us in 12th grade. And there were 11 special ed students in that particular cohort. Of that, we had 5 that did not receive high school diplomas. 3 of those received certificates of completion, and 2 of those did not graduate. One was 18 and decided to get a job and did not want to continue with school. He came back for his 13th year, but then decided to just pursue the work. And the other gentleman just dropped out. Once he went to alternative ed, he did not continue with alternative ed. So that is, we have to create a plan of how we're going to address that. Those are small numbers, but those small numbers impact our dropout ratios. So that was one element. Another element was suspension. Our suspension did go high, but keep in mind that 1 or 2 students with our population of special ed can throw our numbers off completely. And so we did have some students that did get suspended. Of those, 4 of those were suspended due to vaping. It was the year that we had a lot of vaping going on. 2 were actually had some major emotional issues and disturbances, and they had to be placed at NPS to provide some educational benefit for them to work through some things. And then the others were suspended due to some threats to cause harm to other individuals. So we didn't have a lot, but what we had puts a ratio up there for suspension for our special ed, and we need to create a plan of how we're going to address that, and that's what you have in front of you. And the last 2 elements have to do with math and English participation in reference to state testing. State testing happens from 3rd through 8th grade and also again at 11th grade. And of our 77 kids that were in the testing grades, we had 75 that did test. These are special ed, mind you. 75 did test, 3 did not. That threw us off that we have to hit 95% participation. We hit 92. And so I feel like we did a really good job in that area, but we can not help when a parent waives a kid from testing. We try to convince them during the IEPs that it shows growth. It helps us, it helps you, it helps your son or daughter, but they still have the option to waive testing if they feel like their son or daughter, it's not going to benefit them. And so we did have 3 parents. We will keep trying, and again, we have to create a plan that addresses that. And what you have in front of you is the plan, and that needs to go up for approval with the board.
Is there anyone present who wishes to publicly comment on this agenda item? Ms. Madrigal, were there any written comments submitted by the members of the public?
No.
Trustees, do we have any questions or comments on this agenda item?
So thank you for all that and the background information. And it is unfortunate that such small numbers trigger all that, but I understand the necessity of it. So you submit this for approval. Is this, and then this is a document and a plan that works for the next year and subsequent years to follow? Or will it get reviewed after the next?
It'll be reviewed.
Okay.
So we don't have any data from last year because we
Right.
didn't test.
Right.
So this is under 18-19. So once we test this year, we will also be reviewed.
Okay.
But for this, right now, with this particular plan, it goes to the county SELPA.
Okay.
The county SELPA approves it. After you all approve it, they have to approve it. And then it goes to the state. The state has to approve it.
Wow.
And then we are monitored for the rest of the year to make sure that we're doing something related to the plan of what we stated we were going to do to address these issues.
And does that monitoring happen with like site visits? Does it, or does it?
It could.
It could. Okay.
It could. We're not in the intensive review. We're in targeted review.
Okay.
And if we don't improve, we get into intensive improvement. But again, the state is under the mindset that they know where we're at. They know where everybody's at.
Sure.
They know that it's really difficult during the COVID-19 pandemic, and that districts are doing the best they can.
Right.
And so they're out to support. They're not out to be punitive.
Okay. Great. Okay. Thank you very much, Mary.
And I also have a question. So we've already drafted this plan with guidance from the county as well. So,
That's correct.
So they've already had their input in the plan as it stands.
That is correct. That is
Okay.
correct. So the SELPA director, we sent the plan to the SELPA director to review it prior to coming to the board to see if we needed to modify or add anything. Did we miss anything? And she was very happy with what our plan entails. And it will go back down to her, and then her board has to approve it with the SELPA.
I see. Okay. Thank you. Any other board questions? Okay. Is there a motion to approve the district improvement review plan as presented?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next, we have consideration of approval for the 2020-2021 learning continuity and attendance plans. Again, I'm calling on Miss Mary Allen.
So what happens every year is we create the LCAP, the Local Control Accountability Plan. For this year, we have an interim plan called the Local Continuity and Attendance Plan. So when we have the LCAP or this plan, the LCP, that's a global kind of high-level plan for the district. It needs to be drilled down to each site and what that means for the high school, what does that mean for the middle school, what's that mean for the elementary and primary, and that's where the specialists and the principals work together to determine how are we going to align with the LCP for this year and create a plan, and what are we going to do to address the issues that are happening at our site. So what you have in front of you is what we call the single plan for student achievement. And each one of the sites has presented their plan. And this tells us what actions they're going to take, where the funding is, and what are their measures related to their aligned strategic plans. So this is also up for approval from the board.
Is there anyone who wishes to publicly comment on this agenda item? Ms. Madrigal, was there any public comment submitted to the board?
No.
And trustees, do we have any questions or comments?
Just thank you. I mean, I want to let everybody know that those documents were read in their entirety, and so the information was super valuable to have, and I thought it was very easy to understand and digest. So I just want to say a big thank you for taking the time to fill all that information in. I mean, I know it's comes with the job, but I mean, I want to let you know that it's important for us to see it, and I appreciate it very much.
That's what I was going to say too. It's they're long documents, and you can tell that a lot of work has gone into them. So thank you very much. Thank you to everyone. And I also wanted to state that these documents here would be great documents, informative documents for our community and our parents to be reading, because it really does drill down, and you get to understand more of what's going on in the schools as well. So.
I was about to say, I think that for every parent that has a child in the district, they should be reading the plans for their child's school. It's really going to help you understand a lot about what we're dealing with, the challenges that we have, and that the plans that we do have in place for our students to ensure that effective and great learning happens this year that is full of challenges for all of us. So any further questions, trustees? Is there a motion to approve the 2020-2021 learning continuity and attendance plans as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. So now we have an update on in-person and distance learning instruction. And that will be by Dr. Mary Lou Wilson. Will you be presenting it?
Yes, I will start this update for you. Thank you. And Ms. Madrigal, I am going to change the order slightly. We'll start with the principal testimonies. A number of weeks ago, we did make the decision to go back to in-person instruction on November 2nd. You have mentioned earlier this evening the huge effort on the part of our administrators, our teachers, to prepare for that with regards to information nights, videos, students at the high school participating, students at the middle school participating in those day-in-the-life schedules, everyone doing an enormous amount of work to prepare for in-person instruction. All of our employees, every one of our employees worked diligently to ensure that the schools were ready, whether that was grounds or custodial or food services, maintenance, our teachers. And I do want to take a moment and thank every one of our employees, all of our parents for serving as partners, our students who are partners as well, and to the governing board. The last week and a half, a little bit more than a week and a half, has been a very successful in-person endeavor. In that first week, Mr. Heller, Ms. Stubbs, Ms. Allen, and myself visited every campus for at least one full day, one day during different aspects of the school day. And at the primary school, I had the pleasure of being there on the very first day to see TK, transitional kindergartners, and kindergartners come to their very first in-person day. And every one of them had a backpack and a mask, and you could see the smile coming through that mask. And as I watched the teachers check the students in with the temperature gauge, I could see the smiles of those teachers coming in as well. Mr. Heller visited with each principal on the second day of in-person instruction and captured a snapshot of their impression on the first 2 days. And so, Ms. Madrigal, if we could take a look at Mrs. Sanguinetti's snapshot.
Principal Sanguinetti, after the first 2 days of school, can you provide some insight and reflection on how those days went?
Yes, absolutely. I think they went really well. We did a lot of planning, and I think our planning paid off. We were really prepared. And after we had a couple of glitches. I think we're working on parents dropping off and parents picking up. But kids had such a great day. I had so much positive feedback from them and parents. And even though we're exhausted, it's a great exhaustion, because to see especially the kindergarten kids getting out of cars and running as fast as they can to teachers made it all worthwhile. And I know that we made the right decision to have kids here at school in a safe way.
We have approximately 75% of our students in person. It varies by grade level and by classroom. And you know that we are working with simultaneous teaching, so the teachers have cameras on and the students who are at home are able to view what's happening in the classrooms. At the elementary school, one of the aspects that really impressed me as I visited was the organization around students entering and exiting the schools. I saw it at all 4 schools and at the elementary school on Oak Street where the buses drop students off. The students knew exactly where to go from their videos. They knew exactly which classroom to go to, how to get there by way of outside doors instead of inside doors. And it just seemed effortless on the part of our teachers and our students. Let's hear from Mrs. Pearson.
Principal Pearson, after the first 2 days of school, what are some insights and reflections you have about those days?
Well, I come to you just at this moment. I'm feeling so calm, happy, and really reflective about how things went. To be honest, last week and the weekend leading up, I was a little nervous and knew that we had worked really hard to have plans that I thought were going to work. Team members that I worked with thought that looked like that was going to work. Families had been informed at least about them and were hoping that the kids would understand and that things would work as we thought they would. And ready or not, there we were on Monday, just hoping that the best laid plans were going to pan out. And it was better than I thought it was going to be. Smoother, just joyful to see people and to see 3D people in place. What was really nice is that kids realized, a couple kids said, well, at least I know my teacher. The main thing was just finding where we needed to go. Our school's really big. We had great, smooth places to come in and get ready to get into school. And then temperature checks out of the way, the health checks were done at home, and then we just got to business of supporting kids, learning, and just appreciating being here at the school site and back to business. So I'm calling this like the next chapter of this strange but also wonderful year.
At every one of our schools, there are a group of students who had never been on that campus before. And each of our principals and the teachers paid special attention to each of those groups. Joe mentioned that earlier as well. At RLS, I was truly impressed by the manner in which students followed directions and ensured that they were keeping their distance and wearing masks and being respectful of the teachers. Let's hear from Mrs. Cox.
Good morning, Principal Cox. Could you provide us your insights and thoughts on the first 2 days of school?
The first 2 days have been great. It's been wonderful to get back. Kids have been so enthusiastic. I just want to give a huge shout out to our staff. Every single staff member has just been above and beyond every single day, making sure kids know what to do and where to go. It's been just such a pleasure to see students in person again. The first day was awesome with all the kids wearing their new tennis shoes and their new backpacks, and they were just so happy to be here. So it has been a really good start so far.
And then, as you all know, our high school is our largest campus. We do have the most students on the high school, and the students are so incredibly happy to be in person, as Joe mentioned earlier. It's such a joy to see them on the high school campus and to talk with them and hear their excitement. Let's hear from Mr. Cinto.
Principal Cinto, after the first 2 days of school, can you provide some reflections and insight on how those days went?
I think the days went really well. I would say we are really blessed here at St. Helena High School. Our teachers in school was over-prepared. Our students are amazingly compliant with all the protocols that we implemented, and we have a very supportive community who's been encouraging of students, encouraging of teachers, of the school in general. We're still working things out on a daily basis, and we learn as each day goes on. But I would say it's been a huge success. Seeing teachers with their students engaged is a beautiful thing.
I think as board members, you know that your superintendent believes in in-person instruction and that public education truly is one of the backbones to our economy. So there's no greater pleasure that I have to modify the reopening of schools presentation to celebrate with our principals and let them share with you the first couple of days of school. The first 2 weeks of in-person and distance have been largely very successful, and I'm really happy to share this information with you. We do have a few more updates for you, and we'll move through those as quickly as possible. Andy, could you provide an update on the COVID-19 budget, transportation, and the health and safety PPE?
Absolutely. I'll be giving the board a full report in December on COVID-19 revenue and expenditures along with the 2020-21 first interim report. But for tonight, I can say that we've received about $850,000 in one-time COVID relief funds, and we've spent or committed all but about 52,000 of those. The 52,000 is in a special pot for special education, and while we could assign some of our current expenditures to that pot because we are serving special education students with what we've been purchasing, I'm going to be holding those dollars for later on because we have until September 2022 to spend them, so I want to see what other expenditures might come up. And then we've also spent approximately $56,000 towards COVID-19 expenses in the unrestricted general fund this year. And I've got placeholders built into the budget for other expenses that may come up within the general fund. However, we've also experienced some operational savings this year that are helping to mitigate some of those additional general fund expenditures. And with all of these considerations in place, I've just about wrapped up the first interim report in preparation for the December board meeting, and I'm projecting that we will still have a budgetary surplus at first interim. We haven't yet learned what additional relief funding may be available at the state or federal level, but I will be keeping the board updated on that. And then with regard to transportation, for starting our first year providing transportation services in the district on our own, it's gone very well over the past couple of weeks. However, we would like to be able to establish some more physical distancing on the buses, and so fortunately Michael's Transportation has been able to provide us with a fourth driver. So we'll be using some savings in other areas of the budget to cover that fourth driver, and then we're reworking the routes this week, the driver's training, and then our plan is to start with that additional route on Monday, November 30th after everybody comes back from Thanksgiving break. And then with regard to personal protective equipment and cleaning and other health and safety matters, we are ensuring that we've provided stock, all the adequate stock for everybody, and we're continuing to monitor that and make sure that we have what we need.
Thank you, Ms. Stubbs. And moving on now to the Napa County Public Health Update, which you're accustomed to hearing from me at each board meeting. This week, I was able to view on a webinar the county supervisors meeting. Every Tuesday morning at about 9:15, Dr. Reluccio provides a very thorough update with regards to COVID-19. I encourage any member of the public to view that. It's very informative. The doubling time in our county has moved up to 93 days, and that's a really good sign. That means that the 54 cases that we had reported today, it would take 93 days to double that into the 114. While that's good news, the case counts are increasing daily. On Tuesday, Dr. Reluccio reported that we have approximately 30 cases per day. Today, it was 54. So there is that increasing curve in Napa County. Hospitalizations are increasing, and we still have one hospital closed, St. Helena Hospital. The case metrics from the October 25th would put Napa back into the purple tier. We're currently in the orange tier, and the next tier moving backwards is red and then purple. You may have heard it even reported on the news today that Napa County may skip red and go straight back to purple. The challenge is if everything continues as it has in the past 2 weeks, that could happen as soon as November 17th, next Tuesday. So as Dr. Reluccio says, the 3 W's, you need to wear a mask, you need to wash your hands, and you absolutely have to watch your distance. So then the question is, what is the impact of COVID-19 if we're in the purple range for schools and in general? I want to remind the board and the community that this is the document that guides our in-person distance instruction. It's a comprehensive document. It's been updated regularly as conditions have changed, and the most current document is dated October 29th. This has been on the district website for a number of months. The pages that I want to take you to as a community start on page 16, 17, and 18. This page 16 is the health checker, and our parents signed a contract before students came to in-person to conduct this health screening on a daily basis. It's pretty clear on this health screening that if you or anyone in your family has any symptoms of COVID-19, all members of the family are going to need to stay home for 10 days. This is an impact for our schools, and fortunately, with our simultaneous teaching, those students who then are needing to stay home, or our employees that are needing to stay home, if they feel well enough, can continue to work as a student or an employee in that distance learning format. If you go to page 17, it talks about what happens if there are confirmed cases or suspected cases. And then ultimately, in addition, on page 18, it talks about what happens, what do we do if we need to close a cohort, when we have to close a school, and when we have to close our district. I just think it's really important for everyone to take a moment and look through these documents. This is our guiding document. We had to fulfill all the aspects of every page of this document to move to in-person instruction. And I'm very proud of our staff and our students to be able to move through all of this and open to in-person. So where does that leave us today? The last time I reported to you about the positivity rate, it was below 2%. I believe it was about 1.6. It's currently 3.3, and that's adjusted with the number of testing cases that are occurring within our county, which is higher than the state average. If you don't adjust it, our test positivity rate is well over 7%. So we do need people to wear masks, watch distance, and wash your hands. So as far as next steps go and January instruction, I will continue to meet with the public health officer, county officials, and all of the superintendents within the county. We will continue to look closely at the data and the science and allow Dr. Reluccio to guide our thinking. I do want to confirm with all of you that we have opened to in-person instruction. So if our county does go into the purple, that does not mean we automatically need to close our schools. We will continue to use the California Public Health guidance that is aligned with the Napa County guidance. And there's recommendations there, as I mentioned, on those pages 16, 17, and 18. So if we have confirmed cases, public health will work with us. They'll indicate to us whether or not we need to close a class, a cohort, a school, and or the district. I would remind all of you that the way that that guidance works is that if 5% of one school is confirmed positive, that school must be closed. If 25% of our schools are closed, which is one of our schools because of our size, then our district will be closed for 14 days. And again, we'll continue with the guidance from public health. So with all of that information, I will continue to gather more data and bring forward a recommendation in December for our January continued in-person and distance learning. You may have noticed when reading the board policy that Andy Stubbs brought to you earlier tonight that there is a continued requirement with regards to instruction this school year that we offer in person if practicable and distance learning. And so with those two pieces as a part of our discussion, I will bring you a recommendation in December moving forward. And I'm happy to answer any questions at this time.
Is there any public comment on this agenda item? Ms. Madrigal, was there any public comment submitted?
No.
Trustees, any comments or questions?
No, I think this is a bit of a sobering realization that is lurking out there for sure. I appreciate that document's on the website, so I hope that those that are listening that are really pay attention to that information that's out there. I guess it's not really a question, Dr. Wilson. It was just more thinking and hoping that we can stay in person. I guess the concern would be if we were to move to purple, if that would cause families to unnecessarily panic and want to have all of a sudden a big surge switching from in-person back to distance, which is very possible. But I feel like we're prepared to make that switch for those students because we've been there, done that. So sorry, it's not really a question. It's just thoughts.
That's why I started with the celebrations first.
Jeannie, you had something to say? Oh, okay. Jeff?
Actually, I have a comment to make that from what I witnessed at the RLS, I think the exciting thing is that we have to keep in mind that even if we do take a step backwards and we are asked even for the entire district to close, we've already opened. And we've got all these procedures in place. We've got all the personal protective gear. The kids have all been through it. They'll be excited to come right back. So it might be a stumble, but it's not going to be a fall. And so that, to me, is the exciting thing. We've opened, we're getting through it. It's improving, and we don't know what's going to come, but we're prepared for it, and everybody knows what they want to do. So I think it's exciting that we've already opened. That's what I think.
Thank you, Jeff. And I also think that we kind of knew a while back that there was this possibility that we could be opening and going back to distance learning and back and forth throughout the year. That was a realization that was presented to us a few months back. And it was a sobering thought, but I really feel that if the challenge arises, that we can do it. And we just have to really remind the community that it's in your hands. I mean, if you are sick, please stay home. Please stay home so that the school can stay open. So that's my message to parents. We have to, everyone has COVID fatigue, but we have to remain vigilant. And I know that we can do what is best for our students, which is to give our students the option of distance learning or in person if the school sites can be kept safe. Any other comments or questions? I will let you have public comment. So, Forrest, you come to the podium and you state your name and your address.
Hi, my name is Forrest Minter, and I live on 15 Hillcrest Road in Deer Park. And I was just wondering, what is the plan to make sure parents are informed as the COVID situation goes up and down so that they can make that decision for themselves in the most appropriate way?
How would you like me to address that question?
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Madrigal, if you could go to the district website and display the COVID-19 information. So there are lots of opportunities for the public to gain updates. They can go straight to the district website and learn of the reopening plans, the COVID-19 support documents, and then more recently, the COVID-19, Erica, I don't remember what you called it. You just put it on there today. There it is, positive cases update. So that information is all on the district website. Erica, if you want to go ahead and open that document. Nurse Barbara Dondero has created a website for our community that talks about the testing, talks about cases, and will be reporting on a weekly basis where we are with test positives. The what you see, you do see some positive cases on the chart. And if you look closely, you'll see that those are all students who have not been on campus. They are distance learners at this time. She will be adding another column on the far right-hand side that will display any positive cases for students who are in-person instruction. So in addition to the website, the community will receive updates from me. They'll continue to receive the updates at monthly board meetings. I also meet with the teacher-parent representatives, and our principals are meeting with their parent groups as well. The Napa County Public Health website has even more detailed information around the county as a whole, demographics as far as age groups, ethnicity, and what's happening with regards to the different communities within the county of Napa. So there is lots of information available, and I would ask our community to seek it out and open the websites and learn more about what's happening within our community. And at the end of the day, anybody can call me, send me an email. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you.
And also, I'd like to add that Dr. Wilson does present video updates whenever there is some sort of change in our current status or situation. And those have been regular throughout the year. We've been getting those, and you can see how many views are on them. I think we should maybe start being very proud of our YouTube channel, because we have hundreds of views of our YouTube videos, which means that our families are really watching and seeing everything, all the information that we're putting out there. So on to trustees, no more questions? Okay. On to item 12A. Business operations. We have 12A, review and consideration of approval of contracts over $25,000. Sorry about that.
Thank you. We have two contracts for the board to consider approving this evening. The first is with Paper, a company that will provide chat-based tutoring services for our students in grades 4 through 12. This will be funded with our learning loss mitigation dollars, so it's already included in those figures that I provided earlier. And then the second would be a purchase order for 13 Promethean boards. And we would be using the learning loss mitigation dollars for this purchase as well. I had been working with the primary school on their Future Ready Classrooms project before the pandemic hit, and they had already decided that they wanted to purchase Promethean boards. And now we can move forward a little bit more quickly to help support student engagement, and then also make good use of those dollars that we've received. And so with that, I would recommend that the board approve these two contracts over $25,000.
Okay, members of the public, any comments or questions? Ms. Madrigal, were there any comments or questions?
No.
Trustees, any comments or questions? I do have a comment and a question as far as the chat-based tutoring services. I'm really excited to see this, because I do believe it is 24 hours. It's all day long. They can, so we know that some students at certain ages, I would say, okay, our high school students have probably found a more flexible studying format in the current situation. So I know that some students are sleeping in the afternoon and they might be more productive in the evenings, and they can use this tutoring service at any time. Is that correct?
Yes, and I know that Mary Allen and Chris Heller looked at several programs, if I understand, to select one that would be the most flexible for our students.
So again, this is something that I really want to put out to our families and our parents. Please take advantage of this online tutoring service. It is really going to be helpful in helping kids stay engaged, both our distance learners and our in-person learners. So
I just have a continuing President Haug's comments about the chat-based tutoring service. Would that be tailored to the classes offered at specific school sites, or is that more just focusing on the core curriculum? I'm getting thumbs up from the gallery, so thank you.
Mary Allen, could you please come to the microphone and address that so that the community can hear your response?
Yeah, so the beauty of this particular program is that they get all the courses that we have in areas for each student get uploaded to them. So the tutors that are receiving the questions can go ahead and look at Joe Brody's schedule and see that he's in AP or this or that, and the tutoring can go directly to those type of classes. And then the teachers will get a report from the tutors from this program of what are the questions that are being asked. The tutors are not going to answer the questions. The tutors are simply going to guide the discussion so the kids can come up with the answers themselves. And the beauty of this program as well is that you can have French, you can have Spanish, you can have English. So whatever that student wants to use as their language to ask a question, there's tutors that can accommodate that with the various language. It's a phenomenal program, and I'm really excited that it's something that we have the capability of offering in this district if it's approved by the board.
That's great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So again, to our parents and families, I want everyone to be aware of this service that's hopefully will be starting up soon. So is there a motion to approve contracts over $25,000 as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Next, we have review and consider approval of possible bus purchase or change in lease terms. I'd like to call on Miss Andy Stubbs.
Thank you. We're currently leasing 3 school buses for a cost of about $124,000 for the year, which we wanted to do to give us time to research equipment and decide which buses we would want to buy for the long term. We also had the option of buying these lease buses out during the term of the lease, and our decision making got accelerated a bit when I got a call last week from our vendor who said that he had a buyer interested in the buses, and he was requesting that we either decide to purchase them now or swap them out for different smaller capacity leased buses. And fortunately, by Monday, he had found another fleet for the buyer, but in the meantime, I'd sought an opinion from our mechanic and also our transportation consultants to give me some thoughts about if they thought that the buses were in good condition and would they be of good value. And both agreed that it would be a good deal to purchase these buses outright. And so if we were to do that, we would be paying approximately $114,000 to have leased them for this period of time and then to own them versus $124,000 to lease them for the entire year without purchasing them at the end, which is a savings of about $10,000, and then we also own the buses. Also, we would have to own a diesel bus for at least 2 years or more in order to qualify for some electric bus replacement costs. So it would be my recommendation that the board approve the purchase of these 3 buses to give us time to look into grants and identify the best replacement equipment long term. Additionally, electric buses would not serve us very well for long field trips and so forth, so we would want to have a couple of diesel buses for those purposes. Also, I'd like to propose that the board approve using Fund 40, which is our special reserve for capital outlay, for the $68,000 purchase payment, and I did provide the board a copy of that purchase agreement. In order to preserve the general fund, and because we will be generating some savings in Fund 40, I learned recently in pool liner replacement. It seems that our pool liner is due for replacement now, but we can replace it under warranty with a very small cost associated with some lights and so forth. So I'm planning to bring that to the board in December. And so my thought there would be to shift those savings, because we've been doing a set aside for the pool liner, over to purchasing these buses. And then we would continue to save for pool liner replacement in the out years. But we do want to take advantage of the warranty. And so with that, I would ask the board to approve the purchase of the 3 buses, and we can bring it back in December if the board prefer.
Is there any public comment on this agenda item? Ms. Madrigal, was there any public comment submitted?
No.
Trustees, comments and questions? Jeff?
Yes, could you review those numbers again, please? I don't have anything showing me the total lease cost or the total pricing. You just set them, so I'm just trying to follow along.
So far to date, we have paid, we've paid 4 months of lease costs at about $11,262 for the 3 buses in each month, August through November. And so if we purchase the buses now, then we won't have, the out-the-door cost would be the $68,457 that you see, and then we wouldn't have any more lease payments. So then when I total what we've paid already in lease payments plus the out-the-door cost, then that gets us to the approximately the $114,000.
So we own the buses at $114,000. At the end of the year, if we were to continue to lease the buses, what would we have spent?
$124. So if we lease the buses for the full year, we would be paying $124, and then if we wanted to purchase them after that time, that would be an additional cost. So the incentive there, they try and incentivize it to have you purchase the buses during the course of the lease period.
So we own the buses and we save $10,000.
Yes.
And then worst case is that we can't drive them, we can't do anything, we can sell them for parts, and we're still $10,000 ahead, plus all the parts we could sell off the buses in the future and everything else.
And the worst case is that if we keep them and then we're able to trade them in potentially because there are grants for electric buses, but you must have a diesel bus to be able to turn in to qualify for the grants. We can't, there aren't any grants that I've heard of that we can qualify for new equipment without having something to trade in.
So I'm surprised you're not jumping up and down saying, this is something I highly, highly, highly recommend we should do, and I don't know, I would be very upset, and I'd throw my chair if you don't vote for this.
All the things that you said.
That's where I am. Okay, all right. Thank you.
So if I recall, I believe that we were told that the lease company structures it like this because they want us to buy them. Is that correct? And these are used buses, but they're in good shape. Is that correct?
Yes, and our mechanic gave me his opinion that he felt that they were in good shape. We could get at least a couple, 2-3 years out of them. And our transportation consultant, People Transportation Information, also felt that the price that he was giving us was an appropriate value, was good value. Originally, I had wanted to just lease the buses and then possibly think about maybe buying them, but I wanted to have a little bit more time to consider what other types of equipment we want to purchase. But I think given all the circumstances and the number of students that we've seen this year that need transportation, I feel real confident in making this recommendation to the board to go ahead with this purchase.
Further questions?
I'm sorry, and I'm completely for this because I think this is a great idea. But my question is, how long do we have to own the buses before we can go electric? Is it did you say 2 or 3 years or?
It varies on the grant. I've heard that some of the grants require you to hold on to the buses for 2 years, and other grants for 5 years. And so I do have a couple of contacts that I'm planning to reach out to learn a little bit more about the grant process. And
Okay.
start to prepare.
Okay.
One more question. Now, we're talking about, we were mentioning a fourth bus and a fourth bus route. So is it too early to ask, would we be leasing that, or would we be looking at purchase as well?
Actually, the plan will be to use the spare bus because we already own one bus, the
Yeah,
smaller
okay.
of the four, and then we've leased 3 so that we would have a spare. And so the idea is we would be using that spare for the additional route, and then should a driver be ill or should there be something wrong with the bus, we would then condense the routes so that we could still run the main 3 routes and gather the students for school. Is the plan.
And are we still storing the buses down at the yard by the Cal Fire?
We aren't actually.
Oh.
We were able to use the parking lot by the football field for 2 of the buses, and then the maintenance yard. And the buses that we are leasing and hopefully purchasing require a special charging of the emission systems every few days. And so we've put in some power for that charging, and so it's worked out really well that we have the space to be able to store all the buses there. But CAL FIRE continues to be a resource for us if we need to park the buses there for a time.
So any further questions or comments?
No.
So we are looking at considering the approval of the bus purchase. Again, I believe that we are looking for a motion to approve the possible bus purchase or change in lease terms as presented.
I'll make that motion to approve bus purchase and a removing of lease terms.
Is there a second?
I'll make a second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion is carried.
Nice.
And thank you for finding that. Thank you for finding that savings for us, Ms. Stubbs. Really appreciate you always looking out for the best possible financial terms for the district. Item 13A, consideration of approval of the 2020-2021 certificated seniority list. I'd like to call on Dr. Mary Lou Wilson.
Yes, thank you. This item is the annual ranking order for our certificated employees, showing seniority based on date of hire. In the event that we had the task of layoffs for some unforeseen reason, this list would help us to determine who would be considered. The list has been reviewed by SHTA leadership and all membership and is presented as a final document, and the board at this time is asked to approve the certificated seniority list.
Is there anyone who wishes to publicly comment on this agenda item? Ms. Madrigal, were there any written comments submitted by members of the public?
No.
Do the trustees have any questions about this agenda item?
No.
Is there a motion to approve the 2020-2021 certificated seniority list as it is presented?
I'll make a motion to approve the 2021 certificated seniority list.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carried. Now we have for the CSEA employees, the consideration of approval of the 2020-2021 seniority list for CSEA employees. Again, Dr. Mary Lou Wilson.
Yes, thank you. Although the list does look different because some of our classified employees have changed positions, and so they have seniority in each one of the positions in which they have gained permanent status. This is the same list establishing rank for classified employees. It has been presented to CSEA leadership and membership and is presented now as a final document. The board is asked to approve the classified seniority list.
Is there anyone present who wishes to publicly comment on this agenda item? Ms. Madrigal, were there any written comments submitted by members of the public?
No.
Do the trustees have any questions about this agenda item? Is there a motion to approve the 2020-2021 classified seniority list as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. And then we have item 13C, consideration of approval for the revised 2020-2021 district academic calendar. I'd like to call on Dr. Mary Lou Wilson.
Thank you. As you all know, we became very familiar with public power safety outages, PSPSs, last year. We've been experiencing fires and evacuations and since 2017. Last year, early in the school year, Mr. Heller and SHTA leadership, Mr. Brandon Farrell, came to an agreement to add back some days to build into the calendar some potential days that in the event that we had days of school closure, that they would be that would trigger these days becoming student days. So what you have before you now is the school calendar for 2021 that would reinstate student instruction days on Thursday, February 11th, March 15th, and April 12th, 2021 to mitigate those lost instructional days. I want to confirm with you that Mr. Heller did verify this with both labor groups, our SHTA, our teachers union, and our classified union, that all members of our school community are ready and willing to bring these days into the calendar for our students and their instruction. At this time, I would recommend approval of the calendar.
Is there any public comment on this agenda item? Were there any written comments submitted by members of the public, Ms. Madrigal?
No.
Do the trustees have any questions about this agenda item?
I have a quick question. So what were those days before they weren't Students' Day? Were they teacher work days?
Ms. Madrigal, if you want to work with me on this one, I believe 2 of them were teacher work days and 1 of them was a non-work day for everyone.
I see. Okay.
The Thursday, February 11th, I believe, was a longer President's holiday.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm.
Is that correct,
Yes,
Ms. Madrigal?
it's
Thank
up
you.
on the screen.
All right. Thank you.
I would just like to make a comment. I'd like to thank our calendar committee for building and our bargaining units for working together to build into the calendar these days that we knew we might have to claim back in the event of a PSPS. This time it was an event of a fire, but it really showed foresight, and it really is resulting in our students not losing as much class time. And I just want to thank everyone for the hard work that they did on negotiating this calendar. And I'm glad that we have the opportunity to put it to use. So is there a motion to approve the revised 2020-2021 district academic calendar as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. So I'd like to remind all parents to check your calendars, to revisit your planned vacations, and to understand that These dates are going to be school dates that will be put back into the calendar. Okay. We're on to item 14A, future agenda items. So our next meeting is going to be December 17th, 2020. We will be having our annual organizational meeting of the board. We will be having the oath of office for our new and returning trustee. We will be reporting on the CSBA conference. That will be a virtual conference this year. We will have Trustee Olguin reporting on the St. Helena High School. We will get a written report on student services. There will be our COVID-19/school reopening report. We'll have the first interim budget report, an audit report, the it's an annual developer fee report and resolution. And we will be approving the enrollment caps for the 2021-2022 school year. And we'll be having a written report on facilities. Trustees, is there any comments or questions about the agenda for the December 17th board meeting? So at this time, is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I'll make a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting.
Is there a second?
Come on, last time.
All right, I'll second, but I've never voted ever to do that. So I'll second it.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting is adjourned. Motion carried.
Do you want to hit that gavel one last time?